Today I am using the basic white bread recipe. I suppose I could use the Italian herb recipe, or maybe it's the same, I'm not even comparing. But I'm just gonna use this recipe and throw in some Italian seasoning. I'm making it all 3 bread machines worth, and I am going to just make bread expressly to make breadcrumbs. Because we use breadcrumbs in certain things we make, and I prefer to make my own, then I know what's in them. So I usually use dough cycle, as most of you know, for most of my breads, but I am literally this time going to set it and forget it. I'm not even going to check my dough to see if it's too wet or too dry, because it won't matter for what I'm using it for. If it's ugly or sunken or whatever, it will not matter, because I'm just going to hack it apart and put it in the Cuisinart to grind up and make breadcrumbs and put them in the freezer. So that's what I'm doing today. Okay, I admit it. I couldn't help but check to make sure it wasn't too wet or too dry. It's too ingrained in me. Well, the good thing about using baking in the bread machine is that I've already cleaned up all of the stuff, and I don't have to get out loaf pans and everything. So again, I'm just using the basic white bread recipe from my Zoe book, although I didn't bother to add the dry milk. So anyway, and I just added 6 grams of Italian seasoning, dry Italian seasoning. And for the bottle, I used 1 whole little spice bottle worth for the 3 breads. It's, they're rising right now. It's 11:53 a.m. and these will be done at 1:01. See? Pretty, and pretty. Can't resist looking. Now it's time for my lunch. Well, the bread's just finished. I did not do anything. I don't reshape the dough. I don't take the paddles out. These machines were not made to do that. I understand that you don't like the holes or whatever. I mean, I rarely bake in the bread machine, but it's not for the paddles reasons. That's not the reason. Anyway, I'm gonna pull these out. I'm gonna dump them onto a cooling rack and get my pans soaking. So I want you to know that the cracks on the top happened because when I was trying to dump each of them out, they had risen so high that when I turned the bread pan, with clumsily wearing oven mitts, that they all landed on the wire rack on their tops, and that's what made them crack. But if you looked at the portion of the video before, they were not cracked. So they were manually cracked. They didn't crack from baking or cooling or any of those things. I just was a little clumsy when I flipped the bread pans over. I kind of rested it on the wire rack a bit. As soon as I take the breads out, I always get a little water in there. It's warm water and some dish soap, and then hopefully I can do this while videoing, but I'm just gonna wiggle jiggle the paddles out right away. I do not wait. And they've only been soaking. This one's a little harder. I'll give that another minute. Go to the third one here. That one came out. That one came out. So I'm just kind of turning back and forth. Okay, the problem is partially that the water is a little bit too hot. So I'm gonna use that in there. All right. And Sorry for the whole sink business, but I'm holding this in one hand. And it's, oh, come on. Oh, this one is being really stubborn. All right, I should be able to get it off in a minute. Oh, there it goes. Okay, perfect. So you don't want to leave those paddles in any longer than you have to when you baked your bread in there. Okay, so I've got my humongous Italian seasoned white bread loaves in here. I'm gonna let them cool because I'm in the middle of something else. I am gonna taste them because it's kind of unbearable right now. I want to taste it. But anyway, I'm doing something else. But later on, I'm just going to hack these up. I'm just gonna slice them really roughly and put them in cubes and put them in a big foil pan. I just happen to have one here like this. Tear it up, not the pan up, tear up the bread and get them into chunks, put them in the oven, kind of toast them a bit until they're nice and dry, or I can just even, wait a day or so for them to be stale, whatever. And then I'm going to put them in my food processor and make them breadcrumbs and stick them in my freezer. And this will keep me in breadcrumbs for, maybe 3, 4, 5, even 6 months. In case you're curious, this is what it looks like. This is just simply the white bread, plain white bread with Italian seasoning. I did not put the dry milk in. Looks pretty good. The breads have been cooling for quite a few hours. We've eaten dinner and I made them hours ago. So now I've sliced this like really thick slices. Then I'm gonna cut it in, strips and chunks and rip it apart and lay it all out in this big foil pan to start drying out. Want to know what a piece of bread will look like if you cut a loaf sideways? I'm just being goofy here. You know me, the goofball baker. And I just wanted to show you how many chunks of bread. Actually, I'm going to move this over here to show you in front of the bread machine. So this is a lot. I'm going to have to probably break this up into another, get another big pan like this and break it up so I can put it in the oven and kind of dry it out a bit on a low temperature. And then I will make them magically into breadcrumbs and put them in ziplock baggies in my freezer. I'll show you what that looks like probably tomorrow. And it's a little bit later, actually almost bedtime, and I'm just kind of very satisfying pulling pieces of bread like that. I cut that a little big, but that's okay. And obviously I've put half in another pan because it was just too much for one. So I'm just going to leave this out all night to get a start anyway on the drying out, and then I will put it in the oven over low heat. It'll take a while, and just keep, let them go 5 or 10 minutes, and then turn them with a big spatula and so on till they're dry enough for me to process. You can see the bits of Italian seasoning in there. It's the next morning, and you might be able to tell that by the sounds of brewing coffee and espresso. I left these overnight. The layer on top is a little drier. The layers underneath are still soft. So I'm just gonna leave them out some more, and then when I have time at some point, put them in the oven over low heat and keep turning them. Still soft. This one is still soft. I have my oven set at 170, which is the lowest temp, convection. And I am just I let the first 15 minutes, I set a timer for 15, and then I'm just, flipping them over with my giant spatula. And now I'm gonna set it for another probably 10. Ooh, I have an escapee. There we go. All right, so I'll keep you posted. Have a nice sunbathe. I know, I'm so weird. So I just finished toasting these. They're not completely toasted, but they're definitely dried out. And now I am just smashing them to pieces in my food processor. I'll dump them in here, and then I'll dump them in baggies and throw them in the freezer. And I have now a good supply, or I will have a good supply of breadcrumbs. I grind some of it down quite small, but I have to admit that I get a little lazy and leave some chunks, but it doesn't seem to matter when I use it. I guess if you don't have a food processor, maybe you could use a blender, or you would just cut it into smaller chunks and toast it a little more and then kind of crumble it between your fingers. That's all I can think of that you could do. I finally have the videographer handy. He just made his breakfast and it's getting cold. Oh, and the gardener is here making that noise, so sorry about that. And I have no makeup on and whatever, but this is, see what a huge pile of breadcrumbs is now. You can make one loaf at a time and it will still last you for quite a while. But I like to do things in bulk. You can see I'm playing with it. So some of the crumbs are finer, some of the crumbs are chunkier. It's kind of your choice as to how much you want to process them. And the question is, what do I use these for? I use these if I make turkey burgers, because I do mixed up turkey burgers. I use these for coating chicken and then topping with Parmesan cheese and baking in the oven. Use these, I think, sometimes for coating fish. My husband might use them for coating fish. And any other thing that you would use breadcrumbs for. So you can see that this is going to fill, I don't even know how many Ziploc bags, probably at least 4 or 5 of them. And we have breadcrumbs to last, I bet it'll last 6 months, maybe even longer. So that task, other than getting it all in the baggies, is done. Clearly, I'm not the best size estimator. I always pick a bowl that's either too big or too small. I can't parallel park because at least everything appears closer to me and not farther away, so I've never hit anything. But anyway, so this is a lot. This is a lot of breadcrumbs. That's a gallon baggie. Those two are about equal, and this is about half of the other two. So that's a lot of breadcrumbs. Now, I know that this was not rocket science, but I have a feeling that there are some of you who it never occurred to you to make breadcrumbs, and I just thought I would show you how I do it. It's really not a big deal. So, but I just thought, well, I'm making them anyway. I would show you my process so that, if you have leftover bread or you just want to do what I do and make it ahead of time to have, one way to do it at least. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to contact me to ask me any questions, feel free to leave a message. And also, it's easier if you contact me through Facebook. The messaging is a little easier there on with Facebook Messenger. I can't talk this morning, can I? And if you look for me on Facebook Messenger, I'm Ellen Walker Hoffman. So Ellen Walker Hoffman. So if you want to message me, please don't ask me for Facebook friendship Not that I wouldn't necessarily want to be your friend, but I'm not going to accept a Facebook friendship from someone I don't know, obviously. So message me under Ellen Walker Hoffman, send me a private message. I always check, I always answer. That way I can send you pictures or links if you need that. And have a great week. Love you all.